Okay, so here's the panel. It's a couple of days later since my last update. It's out of the keyboard, obviously. It's on my desk here, and I'm going to get started replacing a few of these buttons because the package came in from Mouser. I haven't even opened it yet. Let's find out. Ordered 30 of these buttons, so of course they pack it in an enormous package. They don't come on a tape, which is kind of unusual, but I should have known that. And I'm sure you don't really need another tutorial on YouTube on how to solder buttons, but here they are, and I'll try to post a link to these because I made sure to match them very closely to the real thing. And I'm just gonna go ahead and take a couple of the uncovered ones out because there are certain buttons that didn't have caps on them because they fell off. And then I'm gonna have to tear some caps off, and then I'm going to solder more things. So I'll just show like one of each, just so you can see how it works. Alright, so I'm going to try to keep this in focus. I'm going to show two different methods of desoldering the button. The first is soldering wick or soldering braid. So what you do is you put it over the contact, or over the bead. You press your iron down. You'll notice I'm using the same crappy iron I mentioned in the last video as a really bad way to remove the keys. And you just let it sit for a minute and it'll pick up just a little. You'll see it gets a little bit tinned. Move down the line, do it again. You don't want to do it for too long because you can hurt the traces. But generally, the solder itself will absorb most of the energy to keep it from, kind of boiling over. You have to change your location on the wick pretty frequently. I should probably be spreading this out too. But it has flux on it, or something like flux, that lets it actually pick up the solder. It makes it more attractive to the solder. I don't know if you can see this at all. But there are better videos than this online. So that's what I'm going to do for each one. And if that doesn't work, then I'll come in with the solder sucker, which I'm going to use right now, even though I'm not sure I need it. Make sure it's cleared out. Heat the thing up and just... Yeah, this should be clear enough, because once it's... That's much better. Okay. One more try here. Oh, wait. Sometimes you gotta tap it a few times. Alright, so now there's very little solder left on these. And what I'm going to do is just with the tip of the soldering iron push down on one. Well, it's because it's hot, so it's actually keeping the solder melted as I do this, and push down on the other. And now it should be loose enough to just kind of pop out on the other side. So I'll come back to that. So there it is, right here. And just from that heating and pressing on it, I can just pop it out. It's totally loose, looks exactly the same as the ones I'm about to put in. So typically, if you've got a good soldering iron, don't use it to push on the tabs. And honestly, this thing is so bad. It's not regulated at all. It's very likely to burn, like overheat things if you're not careful, which is why I'm being really careful and working quickly on these. But really, if you're going to do work like this, get a regulated soldering iron. I'm going to soon. It's just I've been very busy, so it's a big decision too because they're expensive. Anyway, so it came out. I'll put the next one in. I'll show you how to do that, and then I'm just going to do them all in order really quickly, like I did with the 303, because it's just a very arduous task. But I will come back when all the buttons are replaced. So the cool thing about these micro switches that I got, they're practically identical in every way, except maybe the push force to the ones that were on here before. They're a little snappier. but they don't have real legs. They don't have long legs like a resistor. They just have these little clippy legs, and they're perfectly sized, and they're kind of pre-spring loaded. So you just put them in the holes, and you push down, and if you don't mess up, it goes right in the holes, and it sits there and holds itself for you while you solder it, and I'll get to that next. Okay, so we've come over to the mask side, and this is as simple as soldering gets. It holds itself. There's no trimming to do. It's so straightforward. I mean, you just heat up the pad and the element, and you poke the solder into it. Should take about 3 to 5 seconds, because that's what the switch is rated for, and that's it. Nothing else to do. I'll probably try to scrub this a little to get the flux that came out of the braid off. And there is the board with 26 switches replaced. I have 4 left over. I ordered 30. I decided the plus and minus buttons really didn't need to be replaced, and the up and down buttons shouldn't be. Those are a layer up and down. They were basically never used. The other guy used this as the previous owner used this as a preset machine. So he really didn't do a lot of layer management. But apparently he hit this button a lot because it was dead. Didn't replace any of the mode buttons because those are not frequently used, even if you're editing. They've got a much easier life. The whole keypad over here is replaced. The number keys actually come off in little strips if you do it carefully. I would recommend that if you take this apart. Somebody else takes this apart. But when I do put this back together, since they're not welded to the board anymore, or not riveted to the board, I'm going to have to assemble it upside down into the face and then lay this over the top so nothing falls out, which isn't a big deal. It's understandable. If that doesn't work, I can always hot glue them to the board by like one leg, so they just like glue, kind of like, yeah, so glue it here by just one of these tips. Yeah, but I'm getting ahead of myself there. I think it'll work if I just lay it flat down. So they're all soldered in. It was very quick. These nice little pre-clipped legs make it all very fast. There's no trimming to do. So I have more stuff to do on the keyboard itself, so we'll get to that next.